As you all know, that programmatic is hot as a pistol in every area, and programmatic is now kind of coming into our area as well. We've got VukuNet and some others here that are very steeped in the programmatic space. Jay Sears is one of the brighter fellows in the business. He's head of development for Rubicon project. And let's talk about programmatic and all the ins and outs. Jay, please come up and you'll introduce your guest, and let's give Jay Sears and the panelists a hand.
All right, thanks, Barry. My favorite line so far today is "the trend is your friend." Although I think programmatic maybe is a little bit bigger than a trend. It's really a transformation. So I'm Jay Sears. I'm the SVP of Marketplace Development for the Rubicon project. We're a technology company that specializes in programmatic trading, and we operate around the world. What I'm going to do today is we're going to have a pretty broad-based discussion about programmatic video and television. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce our guests here, and then Jeff's going to help me do a little bit of setup. We're going to touch on what's unique in particular about different types of video and television, and then we're going to spend the rest of the hour talking about programmatic and the opportunities and the issues, hopefully so you walk away with a little bit of actionable insight today. So quickly, let me introduce our panelists. I'm going to start with Eric and go down. So Eric is with GoDaddy, Director of Brand Media. He interacts with digital place-based media at the gym and calls the medium disruptive. He reports GoDaddy will spend close to 30% of its media on programmatic by 2016. And if Eric was not in digital media, he would captain the Sunset Catamaran cruise around Bora Bora.
That is correct.
All right, good. Okay. Next is Carl at MEC. Carl is the Global Chief Digital Officer of MEC. You just hit your 18-month mark there. Carl is known for his longevity in the business. He was 13 years at Digitas, a digital-first agency, and then 16 years at Wonderman before that. And he reports that they spend about 30 cents on the dollar today on programmatic, and that will be about 40 cents on the dollar in 2016. And the other thing you need to know about Carl is he sits on the board of the New York Ad Club, and he's helped raise over $10 million in that capacity for scholarships and training for diversity talent for our business, for the advertising business. Next to Carl is Rob. Hi, Rob.
Hello.
At Havas. He's the digital head of, a global digital head at Havas Media, and 10 years at Havas. And before that, a stint at Lycos. Does everybody remember Lycos? That's probably some stories for later. He describes video pre-roll in mobile as, quote, fucked. And if he was not in the digital ads business, he would be a chairlift operator. Okay, so we might get into both of those things later. Jeff at Starcom, EVP of Digital Data and Analytics, 10 plus years in working in analytics. He interacts with digital place-based media in planes, cabs, and elevators. So that sounds like the profile of an advertising executive to me. And he describes pre-roll desktop video as annoying. If not in the ad biz, Jeff would help build a space elevator. So that may be the one thing more confusing than programmatic. Okay.
I didn't know you were going to read that when I wrote it down. So I might have changed my answer.
Okay. Julian from Zenith. Staten Island's in the house. All right. The man with brand in his name. The EVP of Activation Standards, Insight, and Tech at Zenith. He interacts with digital place-based media in bars and shopping malls. Okay, so I just want to pause there for a minute. Jeff, planes, cabs, and elevators. Julian, bars and shopping malls. So we could talk about that.
A different kind of advertising.
Oh, I know your profile. Prior to Zenith, almost 9 years running activation at Starcom. And I asked Jay-Z what he would do if he were not in the digital ad biz, And he said he would still work in media because he had a passion for it since he was a little kid. So all of us wanted to be policemen and firemen, and you were walking around saying, when I grow up, I'm going to run activation. Maybe. Okay. And anchoring on the far end is John from Magna Global. He's the Director of Marketplace Development at Magna, home of the 50% automation goal. We will talk about that. We thank you for that. John spent 4 years deep in the operations and campaign management of RTB, real-time bidding, and programmatic before he joined Magna 2.5 years ago. And he was also Professor of English Language and Culture at the China University of Petroleum.
Throwing curveballs out here.
There you go. And he finds digital place-based media incredibly interesting. Okay. Now, Jeff, help me set this up a little bit. Let's talk about why video and TV broadly is different than other types of media. And the first comment you made to me was, there's supply constraints. So what does that mean?
I just think it means that we have kind of an odd problem to solve, which is that people in our business who are generally comfortable with programmatic tool sets and sort of programmatic activation or automated activation come from the digital side of the world where there's almost an unlimited amount of supply. And so they've sort of grown up in this, this world where they expect automation to be able to activate against supply that's just there and have a wide variety of sellers to be able to bring into the automated world. And that's not really the case in either place-based or TV or any of the other sort of video environments. And so as we're working to solve this problem around how you bring programmatic or automated activation to video that sits outside of the traditional desktop digital world, trying to sort of cross-expose people who have programmatic skill sets with people who understand the industry and sort of the supply side of television and the supply side of outdoor is definitely a challenge that we have to solve as an industry, because it just means you attack the problem totally differently. The way that you think about new models and how new financial models or compensation models need to really drive how operators, how publishers are getting paid incrementally for selling media that they haven't historically sold programmatically through more automated means.
Okay, all right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and talk to us about too, I mean, one of the things you talked to me about was the inability for unique creative.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, actually the last panel talked a little bit about it, how the importance of content, right? And the real value of programmatic or of automation is just allowing people to make more decisions more quickly. And one of those key decisions is really on what content needs to be delivered at this time, because I've just understood or uncovered the consumer or set of consumers who are about to engage with this ad. That can be really powerful when I'm then able to almost in real time deliver that content. And in place-based and in television, that ability to deliver the content in real time hasn't really caught up to the ability to understand who that consumer is at that point of delivery or at that point of decision, as we like to say. So there's really some interesting technology problems that need to be solved as well to be able to take the content that brands are working so hard at creating to engage specifically with different audiences and micro audiences, and then deliver that content in real time once you know who's about to see it.
Okay, so you have supply constraint, you have basically non-real-time distribution across a lot of video and TV, and we're not yet synchronized between kind of the medium and the message.
Yeah, and the technology and the standards of that sort of third-party or independent technology to be able to create those pipes and then deliver across those pipes doesn't really exist today.
Okay. All right, now let's talk about the different types of video and television, and we're going to try to do this quickly. So Rob, I'm going to start with you. The pre-roll, video pre-roll on the desktop, you said it's a distraction. Give us a little color. Is there anything we can do there?
Yeah, I think when it comes to a lot of the ads, when you're looking at the online video and sort of the pre-rolls that's there, I think it generally comes down to a creative and a content problem. Yep. More often than not, you'll see a brand that'll take their standard TV spot, chop it down to a smaller format, and then because there's just plenty of supply with pre-rolls and online video, very different than sort of what you're talking about. You run the same ad over and over. So if I watch an online video and I go to Hulu or I go to somewhere like that and I'm going to watch Heroes or something like that, you'll get the same Dove ad or the same Honda ad the entire 30-minute or 40-minute, hour-long show. And that's where I find it a distraction. I don't mind the ad per se, particularly ads that are made good. I think there's a missed opportunity, particularly in programmatic, and I've hammered this drum too much to a point I'm sick of myself saying it, but there's a lack of programmatic creative on that where I have all this data, particularly in mobile when I'm consuming video. There's all this data that's there and available where I could tailor that ad to that user. And the example I always like to use that if I'm watching a Warren Miller movie or a Warren Miller show, whether on my desktop or my mobile, why don't you have sort of the ads that are against that be something appealing to somebody in that show? Or even if the car or the watch doesn't directly match that, there's an opportunity there to put it into that context. I think even then when you take that to TV, and I can see the future of programmatic there where I'm going to pay more for the first and last ad in that pod because I can directly target that to the content. So if I'm fast forwarding and skipping the ad pod, right, I'll stop on that first and last because it's somewhat relevant contextually, so I might hang around a bit more. And in online video, it's not happening enough.
Okay, all right, good. Next one is digital place-based media. Julian, I'll pick you for this one. You say the medium's in its infancy. Yeah. So what needs to happen? What are the signs that that digital place-based is growing up a bit?
Well, I think it was mentioned before, right? We're in a position where the measurement needs to kind of mature, and the ability to deliver via third party needs to be there. And once you have those two, you start seeing, a medium mature, right? And I think that's what happened, for example, even in desktop video and things of that nature.
Sure.
And I think we're fundamentally lacking that at scale, right? And I think you have pieces of it in place. Again, in an elevator, you have a camera, you can verify that somebody's there, and that's great. But how much of that is truly available and then scaled and brought together and centralized, right? So I think when you're looking at, any medium looking to mature, the way that we can make it mature is obviously to be able to measure against it. Once you can measure against it, you could put it into your entire kind of funnel of how you, figure out media investment and attribution, and then apply that, and figure out where the dollars need to go. And if that's where your audience is, then you tend to kind of invest there. But until you have maturity in the measurement side, that's a gap.
That's a gap. Okay. All right. Eric, talk to me about digital out of home. You say impactful.
Yeah. No, I think again, as been brought up a couple times this morning, I think we're bombarded now with 5,000 ad messages a day by any recollection, and naturally you're going to become numb to the message. Things are going to blend into each other and look like each other. So to be able to have some kind of unique either contextual message, or if you can't be contextual, contextually, you can be relevant in an environment that's unique. And I think that's where, again, in a marketplace or in an environment where you're not competing with 4 other things going on at the same time, then that's naturally you're just going to stand out a little bit more.
Yeah, good. Okay. Carl, I want to ask you about full episodic players, like a Hulu. Right. Universally, when I talk to everybody seems to love that format. So why? What does that format have that maybe you don't see elsewhere?
Well, it's a unique content, and I think that's a big part of it as well. But it's the audience too. So you're bringing or getting an audience that is focused on video, that is there for the video content, and you capture their attention. So for me, it is about the audience and about the context, as well as the type of audience that you're getting, and that's what those platforms deliver.
Okay, all right. Addressable TV, Rob, it's the future. Yeah?
Yep.
That's it?
That's it.
You want to the mic done here?
Yeah, we're done. Slam the mic down. Sorry, I keep getting distracted by the broad sign ad here. Whoever that guy is, I want to be sitting with that view and the cigar in my hand versus up here with bright lights in my face. I keep having little daydreams there. No, I think the addressable TV is, but I think to me, you know, the bigger piece there is the television set and sort of the linear TV world, I think will continue for the foreseeable future to be the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And the way we like to look at it is, you know, I'm buying video, and I want to associate my clients' video content with premium good video content from a publisher. And I want that whether it's in their mobile app, whether it's online through a full episodic player, whether it's on the publisher's main website, whether it's on demand through my cable box, however I'm accessing that content, I want to associate that to. And so, you know, we're in the process of sort of a restructure to put, you know, digital out of home with traditional out of home, put digital radio with traditional radio, put TV with the online video buyer, you know, and then have sort of programmatic sort of spread across all that. We have trader specialists in it, but I still think that the potential there is, you know, the connected TV is a giant sort of tablet on my wall with an ad server built into it. And you think about sort of tracking in this cookieless world, I think one of the really exciting opportunities with that is if I can build a unique ID that maps the smart TV to the internet connection of that household, the Wi-Fi, I can then map every other device in that household back to that core connection. And then when those devices go anywhere else in the world, I can still remember sort of back where they came from. So in this world of digital and everybody sort of jokes that TV's dead, it's ironic that the smart TV and the connected TV actually represents a key mechanism for cookieless tracking.
Yeah. Okay. And Rob, let's stay with you. And when we talked about linear TV, you said it's a dinosaur. When I talked to Jeff, he says linear TV is relevant. So let's have the two of you. You know, you get a minute here. Let's
yeah, I think that linear TV. My approach on that is that I think a lot of consumers now, particularly with on demand, have gotten very addicted, and I think you're going to see this trend continue of binge watching. I'm going to deliberately skip the entire season, so when I jump into it, I can watch 13 episodes back to back over a weekend or a vacation. Even now, you're seeing many programs that as soon as it airs live on TV, it's available live on demand when I want it. Now, there's varying degrees of, you know, blocking the fast forwarding the commercial in that scenario, and all sorts of battles between the advertisers and the publishers and the content owners with that sort of stuff. I think the one area where sort of more traditional linear TV still wins is live sporting events. Because that's just not appealing to me the day after. Like, I don't even record games that I've missed because I've already caught the news on my phone and my social news feed somewhere. So that's where I say it's a dinosaur in its traditional mechanism, but it can have future life, and I think it's probably where you'll go, in an ecosystem of other things, but as a standalone sort of mechanism to communicate to an audience. That's where I'd argue it's a dinosaur.
All right, Jeff, you say it's relevant, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly still relevant from the perspective of people spend a lot of time with linear TV, and there's a lot of still the lion's share of all ad dollars go through linear TV. Yeah, so I don't think that we can make the claim that it's not currently relevant. And I think it's, you know, when it comes down to some human things, how agencies, how advertisers, how marketers, and how operators and networks are used to buying and selling. We have a lot of people in this sort of ecosystem who are really comfortable with how things are bought and sold today. And I don't see that changing rapidly, at least, you know, at least in the next 5 years, because this is a human business, and humans are generally governed in a lot of ways by inertia and like to do things the same over and over again, right?
That's where I'd argue make the dinosaur analogy. All right, maybe it's still kicking, so maybe dinosaur is the wrong analogy. Maybe it's the wounded elephant that has yet to go off and not drag down the herd with it and go die on its own. Because, you know, we in the industry like to keep doing the same things over and over because we're lazy people, and that's how the world turns. I get it. But if you look at what like Nickelodeon is doing, and, you know, I have 3 kids at home, it's fascinating how my kids would rather watch a show on an iPhone and iPad before they get to the TV set, and the kids actually want to watch certain shows on certain devices. My kids only ask for certain shows on the iPad, certain shows on the iPhone, and certain shows on the TV. And what Nickelodeon is trying to do is create a whole host of new shows and only pipe them to the device where they know they're getting the most traction. So that's going to force us as an industry to rethink sort of how we buy, even with digital out of home, right? You know, I think there's, in all those cases, the one missing piece right now with programmatic and in some of those scenarios is the lack of context to that. You know, you look at what AdTrack's trying to do to give me additional data points in terms of physically where that is, who's seeing it, particularly with a connected TV and breaking away from the linear, how they watching it, when they watching it, where are they pausing it, and which device are they picking it up again. And if I can use that data, you know, it's not that it won't be valuable to me, but how I'm going to leverage it will be different.
Yeah, good. All right, now I'm gonna switch to just general an array of programmatic issues and opportunities. First topic I want to talk about is what does automation mean when we're talking about TV? I think there are different parts of that definition. John, I'm going to start with you because at Magna, you guys have been extremely public about this goal of reaching 50% automation. It doesn't happen unless you automate television. So how do you guys describe automation?
Absolutely. So I think, there's definitely a big difference between programmatic and automation, to be clear about that. When we talk about television, we're really talking about workflow automation at its core for now, and that's a critical component to getting to those next steps of tying it all together. Programmatic has been the easiest way to get to that word automation in the earliest forms, and so we've seen great growth within our internal programmatic offerings. But we recently made some great partnerships with the likes of Wide Orbit and others to look at the way that we're looking at local broadcasts and building a better marketplace of inventory that we can access in a more cogent manner.
Okay, all right, got it. Can linear TV be automated? Julian, what do you think?
Eventually.
What's the time horizon? And what's the incentive for the players to go there?
Well, I think it's a hard question to ask and answer effectively because I think when everybody talks TV, everybody looks at primetime and the shows in primetime.
Yeah.
But TV is so much broader than that, right?
Yep.
We have local, we have syndication, and all these other parts.
Yes.
The back ends of the networks, and I've met with every single one in the last couple of months, they're not set up for that, right? And frankly, they're not necessarily overly incentivized to go there. So the question is not so much when it is, it's when is there going to be incentive to do that. I personally have a philosophy, right? So I think the NFL contract is up for renegotiation in 2020. When Google buys the NFL deal, instead of a network, you'll start to see a lot more proliferation of potentially programmatic scenarios, right? You're going to see with CBS doing what they're doing, you're going to see all the other networks release apps. And that's just the kind of beginning of where consumption will start to change.
Yep.
And make it be a little bit more app-based. And as Rob said, you're going to be using your tablet on your wall as the proxy for you to get content. Cable companies will be, for all intent and purposes, I think, broadband providers. But once you have that kind of sports scenario become ubiquitous, then the natural kind of inclination of I need to tune into a live show, there's almost nothing left. You can talk about award shows, but I don't know who still watches the Oscars.
Well, I mean, I think the Oscars and Grammys, I think, did a great job of that this past year, right, with their app and the additional content that isn't in the show, and they pimp it on TV, and you get your phone out, and so there's something extra there. It's
Absolutely,
repurposed.
So it's a consumption habit, right? And the fact is that TVs don't turn over year over year. You may turn over your mobile phone year over year, but you don't turn over your TV every year. That's like somewhere of a 10-year cycle, give or take. So we're probably in the midst of a little bit of a period of time where there's going to be, over the next 5 to 7 years, a turnover for people in their home to have devices that are enabled for you to now watch app-based, quote-unquote, programming, things of that nature. Once you have now, as Rob said, connected environments and smart, whatever you want to call it, OTT, your game consoles, everything else, now you not only do you open up kind of, I don't know if it's a different inventory pool, but a different capability within that inventory pool to then deploy in a more dynamic manner, things of that nature, then you'll start to see a shift in the approach. But that's still taken into account that you're not talking about how local works, and you're not thinking ultimately how syndication works and all these other parts of the TV ecosystem that have to come into play.
I think there'll be some UI changes that have to enable that as well. I mean, Xfinity has all sorts of app-based experiences on my screen at home. We have Dish as a client. We work with them. But I think accessing some of these fancier functionalities, it's still largely a click and scroll experience, which is just, if you're used to the ability to search for what I want when I want it on my phone or my laptop, that's unacceptable and terrible.
Voice-activated televisions, anybody that goes to CES have seen it. Voice and hand-activated televisions, things of that nature. Xbox Connect is a nice proxy to getting that in market. Once you have that behavior pattern change, then you could talk about how do I start automating things and programmatic in TV.
So what, Eric, if the NFL goes to Google, right, and And Barry,
I want to
talking
VIG.
this
If
morning-
Google's here, I want to VIG on that.
If we were talking this morning about HBO going over the top and CBS, so we get unbundling. Like what starts to happen with the economics of TV at that point?
I think at some point too, people will get in the space where be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of programs that people discover. I'm not a watcher of some network, but I'm flipping through and I get that network and I might be in the mindset where, that's interesting, I'm going to watch that.
Yeah.
So I would just, again, caution that, again, when you start unbundling, chances are the combinations that you want to bundle versus what that sum total would be, my guess that's going to be pretty similar. Because now you're unleashing the ESPNs of the world, who are going after the cable companies and the MSOs.
Yeah.
Now you're kind of giving them free rein to go straight to the consumer.
Yep.
So if you think Comcast doesn't want to pay $5.73 a month to ESPN for their bundled service when they come to you at $10, that might be some interesting decisions that people are going to have to make down the road.
Yeah. And Carl, what's the impact of unbundling on content creation? I mean, a lot of the economics of bundling is how all the hits get financed, because you got a 9 bomb, you get 1 hit. So what happens? Do we still have a world where there's good content, or is it?
Actually, I think it unleashes more creativity.
Okay.
By unbundling it, because it allows for more free economics to happen. And it also enables brands, marketers, I believe, to create new relationships and new partnerships in that unbundled arena. So I believe that it will give us greater content, greater creativity, and more brand opportunities, actually.
Okay. All right, Julian, I want to go back to a reference you made about, hey, there are different types of television. And let's talk about where are the logical entry points for automation across that landscape of television types, right? You mentioned there's upfront, there's scatter, there's spot, there's syndication. Like, which of those do you need the most? Like, what problems have we solved with programmatic and automation in other areas that are applicable to some of these types of television?
I mean, I think that the natural answer more than likely would be the scatter market, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that you still don't want to do upfront. It makes sense, obviously, to lock down inventory as you can, and there are logistical and just pricing reasons for doing so. I think the scatter market might play well, but look, I think when you start thinking about if the back end of network X is enabled for programmatic, if you will. I don't know that, again, I don't know that it's the primetime inventory that goes. It will be daytime. It will be overnight. It will be all these other kind of opportunities that I think are the first ones that get played with.
Yeah.
Before you start getting into the real high quality content that, I know that I'm going to have X amount of, well, somebody says that X amount of people are watching, we can validate it in several years, right? But I think those are the kind of environments that I think are natural to kind of be traded in programmatic, simply because there's not a dollar down on them yet, right? And you have the opportunity, whether it's biddable or not is debatable, but you have the opportunity to potentially create higher revenue opportunities, higher CPMs, things of that nature if you're a broadcaster.
Yeah, I would think to that, right? I mean, I don't know if you disagree, but I think some of the upfronts and the primetime stuff would still go that path, but they would probably just turn the algorithm off, and the programmatic technology just represents sort of paperless workflow, like you mentioned before.
You
right?
look at you look at what an upfront is, and you equate that to what a private marketplace is.
Right.
Same principle, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to buy upfront, and everything's going to go through my private marketplace. Whether or not I'm layering in data on, that's debatable. Like in theory, you'd want to. Right? But at the end of the day, all of a sudden I start layering in data, not only do my costs go up, but all of a sudden my inventory pool of the actual audience goes down, and my approach as a marketer, in terms of how I'm trying to reach consumers, that's variable per marketer, that becomes a little bit more challenging. I might be reaching a smaller pool, it's more effective, or I'm looking at a broader pool, how do I approach it? Do I look at the same way I go at digital, and I look at acquisition-based, or so on and so forth? So there's a lot of different kind of parameters of how this could play out.
The key there is that it's all kind of coming from one platform, that you're looking at it in a holistic way.
In a holistic way. All right, Eric, what do you think?
And I think one of the things, though, that needs to be considered is the fact that we can have all this automation on the front end, the targeting, the addressability, but it really comes down to, and the broadcast networks aside, it comes down to that head end at the MSO level and at the satellite level, and that's where the automation can really come in on the executional side. Because with linear TV, while people talking about programmatic, it's really more from a targeting standpoint. It's not really in the executional side. And that's why, you know, I think we need to be watching the AT&T DirecTV merger and the Time Warner Comcast merger, because as you're starting to consolidate the numbers of MVPDs, it's going to become easier and easier to have one company or some kind of association that represents a smaller group of companies create some standards for that insertion at the head end. And then when you've got that, that can really open the door for the executional side of programmatic television.
And the data that all of those companies are going to unleash.
It's going to create huge incentives.
Correct, correct.
Yeah, okay. Rob, Julian mentioned a minute ago, you made the analogy between upfronts and private marketplaces. What are the lessons maybe broadly TV or video broadly could learn from the evolution of programmatic and automation around display and mobile, and kind of what's good to emulate, and maybe what could we tell these guys that they should just skip?
Yeah, you know, skip the arbitrage, skip the reselling.
Skip the fraud.
Yeah, skip the fraud, that'd be a handy one. You know, and I think at the end of the day, if you focus on the end audience and you have some context of what they're doing, are they actively engaged, learning from what they're watching, or is it more of a sit back, sort of numbing my mind out? You know, and the same thing goes when you look at when you're doing sort of sequential targeting with dynamic creative platforms. I want to know, you know, which ads on the home page, which ads on a page that's really just a throughput page, which ads on the page that I'm going to hang out there and watch this like 3.5-minute video with a companion ad right next to it, targeted to it. And if you think about that context, I go back again to the programmatic creative, there's just an opportunity there to do better with delivering more relevant messages to the consumers. And I think the more you do that, the more data they're going to be willing to share, and the more you can make that relevancy sort of value proposition in exchange back to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we think about all this through the lens of creating more valuable consumer outcomes, whether those outcomes are behavioral outcomes or attitudinal outcomes, I think we can see pretty quickly a lot of opportunities to use automation or technology or programmatic to drive more outcomes for marketers, right? And whether that's as simple as, forget whether it's low tier or top tier inventory, as soon as you know something about the consumer who's about to watch that ad, or engage in that experience or whatever we call it, you now have the opportunity through things like simple copy rotation to show a more relevant piece of content and drive more valuable outcomes. And so that has to be the way we sort of look at where we go with automation, how we think about automation, really how we think about creating value in the marketplace through automation, even in inventory that might be upfront or might be private marketplace, because there's always an opportunity to decision in real time or decision programmatically to create more value.
I think that's, you know, you can take, I was going to say quick, and I'll let you jump in. You can take really, I think, 3 examples that really aren't thought of as programmatic. Is if you look at what Google did for paid search, what iTunes has done for music, books, entertainment, TV shows, and then what Amazon did to commerce. I mean, they're really the original programmatic scenarios, right? Where I'm taking some data, I'm making some decisions to give you more of what you want, and it makes the experience better, and you look at what those companies are worth. So, I mean, that's a key takeaway for me.
I just wanted to talk about the liquidity for the publisher. When you combine a data set to a programmatic offering, I mean, the mentality right now is this is where I'm not going to get the best bang for my buck. But the reality is if you put that data overlay into a good context, you can actually get a higher return on that impression in the scenario I just outlined, where I know who that user is in the right context. As an advertiser, I'm willing to pay a premium on that. And so that needs to be recognized by the marketplace from a publisher standpoint.
I think that liquidity is a great example. I mean, you look at search, right? Who'd ever thought in the early days of search, advertisers would pay over $100 for a click, right? And then now it's sort of a stark reality in many cases.
Right. And I think we're going to have to, because consumers more and more are going to use technology to be able to skip or not watch the things that they don't care to watch, the things that we don't do a good job of creating and making meaningful and engaging. And
did you just say linear TV is a dinosaur?
No. I think it'll be. I think.
Sure?
Yeah, I think applying programmatic to linear TV will help to solve some of these challenges. I mean, I think you were talking about digital video that you said was fucked. I said it was annoying. I didn't know that we could swear. I said fucked too. But
it always wakes up an audience if you drop the F-bomb on stage. That's my rule of thumb when it's public speaking.
So I mean, I think it won't be long before, as dollars shift into digital video, all the things that you talked about that are sort of annoying, before the TiVo of digital video comes out, right? And that's going to be better than TiVo on television, right? It's going to allow us to skip ads more efficiently. It's going to do it for us.
Yep.
And I think we're going to be willing to say, I'm going to put my passwords into the system that's going to go out and download that content for me and then skip past all the stuff that I don't want. So that's going to put the responsibility and the accountability on advertisers, on marketers to create things that people want to engage with.
Well,
maybe it's e-com, maybe it's content.
And Facebook,
I think that's a great point.
Do that already,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
Well, because I think we're all looking at the models that we have today and going, that's what's going to be ubiquitous, and that's how it's going to work. And I think we will be in a scenario where we be back in the 1950s and somebody sponsoring shows and a lot more sponsored content I'm going to say fuck too since everybody said it. I hate the term native, but a lot more kind of native, if you will, advertising that's a little bit less kind of in your face, 30-second spots or pods in it. I think you'll have a lot more, brand engagement with programming. If Carl's point is accurate, which I happen to think it is as well, is you'll have a lot more content available when more people can create it, and it can be spread.
Isn't that what automation is going to supply us? Is the ability to work on more?
No question. No question. It's all relative, right? But I think if we keep kind of going, all right, well, I have to figure out in the context of a 15 or a 30 or whatever it is. I think we're missing the point. Is that if people's behaviors are, I'm going to skip that, right? Or I don't want to watch that, then I have to build it into the programming, and I have to have my brands involved at an earlier stage in programming and do it that way.
But we're not, as an industry, we're so focused on the bottom end of this.
The spots and dots.
Right, we're not focused as an industry on the creativity side about how, yes, the data side married to the quality of the audience and the impressions is critical. But we must address how to get consumers' attention. So we know how to do it from a data targeting side. Now, how do we do it to capture their hearts and minds?
So how to tie all this to the creative message.
So there's answers in programmatic there, and I think that this might be something that's kind of a twist for a little bit for everyone. Is that using the algorithm, using data targeting, using RTB in some circumstances can actually help you identify new audiences that you didn't know existed in the past that identify with your brand, and that can be pulled back up with good communication internally, back up all the way to the creative.
But right now, they're two disparate groups.
Absolutely.
That's focused on one end, the media side, and the other, the actual experience side.
I think it's also one of the ways that we're thinking about video too, and maybe we have a little bit of an advantage over some companies being an e-com company, is that we're looking at video a couple different ways. One is to take our brand messaging and to use digital video to extend that messaging, but also to use custom content to retarget people. So how much more effective is content served to somebody if you know where they were on your site when they bounced from your site, and then to deliver custom content to them that speaks to potentially why they left the site. We're really making 2015 a concerted effort to do that, to really drive home, because we think, obviously for us, a person who's come to our site and has bounced is still it's still easier to get to them rather than getting somebody in from the street. For the first time.
I mean, I don't, I think we could all agree that, the tagline from that NBC promo, the more you know, kind of actually makes sense, right? The more information you have, the better you are in terms of your entire marketing mix. But again, I'll go back to, again, what Carl said. I do think that, the data can be used to inform, there's no doubt. You should be ratcheting that up to strategy, and your entire approach needs to be taken into account and using programmatic to do that. But creative is absolutely missing in this. And I don't just mean dynamic, I mean actually thinking about creative ways to reach the consumer. We're so hung up on automation and everything that goes with it and patting ourselves in the back for creating tools and tech and lots of dollars flying around. What we're missing is the actual creative work to get in front of the consumer and engage with them. Because it's not simply about getting them the message, right? It's about getting them the right message and getting it at a point in time where you're gonna elicit a reaction.
Yeah, if anybody saw, I was at Advertising Week, our CEO, Yannick, did an interview with the editor of Wired, and I think the most quotable thing for me in that one was when he said that programmatic didn't kill the creative director.
Yeah, got it. We have about 5 minutes left, and the way I'm going to close the hour is we're going to do some word association. So what I'm going to do is I'll start with Eric, and I'm going to mention a word. And because I have 6 of you guys up there.
I think we can curse.
You can curse if you want. Because I have 6 of you guys, super fast, one word, okay? All right, so the first word is operating agencies. So give me one word.
Operating, partner.
Humongous.
WTF?
All right, couldn't resist. All right. Operating agencies.
Consultative.
Oh, you've put the words together, that's right.
Paycheck?
Automated.
Okay. Advertisers, one word.
Necessary.
Brand.
Life. Pays our bills.
This is hyphenated. Value exchangers.
Can I repeat necessary? Because that's what I think they are.
Sure.
God.
All right, I was going to say simplicity. Okay, media owners. Eric, one word.
Terrified.
Okay. Media owners, Carl.
Robber barons.
All right.
I was going to say scared, so we're in the same boat.
Okay.
Platforms.
Partners.
I missed the word again. What was
Media owners.
Media owners. Partners.
Okay, sellers. Google, one word, Google. Eric.
Hubris.
Good word. Ubiquitous.
I need to use a lot of hyphens. I was going to say one trick pony.
Ooh. All right, there you go.
I guess disruptors.
Big.
Big. All right. Google.
It's lame. Just partner.
Partner.
Yeah.
Okay. Diabolical. Facebook. I'll start with you, John. Facebook.
People.
Addressable.
Addressable.
Yeah, consumers.
Goldmine.
Connector.
I'm struggling for one word. Silly.
Silly.
All right. Cross screen. John, television budgets. Television budgets.
Liquid.
Budget.
I'll say increasing.
Okay.
Video.
Flat.
I was going to say video too.
Video. All right. Yes, please. Linear television. John.
Measurement.
We'll get there eventually.
Content.
Dinosaur. I'm sticking to
They're
it.
consistent. Okay. All right. Carl, linear television.
Lean back.
Lean back.
Generational.
All right. Mother load. Programmatic. John.
Career.
Misunderstood.
Real-time decisioning. RTD.
Adolescent.
Critical.
Coming.
Effectiveness. Eric, I'll do this with you. Quality journalistic content. One
Disappearing. I'm a journalism professor, so I have to say that.
All right. Very good.
Engaging.
Newsfeed.
necessary.
Spreading.
Attention.
Okay, and our last one, start with you, John. Digital place-based media, one word.
Mobile.
Elevator.
Well, that was bar for you, but okay.
Yeah. I came up with a new one.
Unskippable.
Engagement.
Interactive.
Fifth screen.
All right, everywhere. All right, everybody, put your hands together. Thank our panelists.
Right on time.
Right on time.
Thank you all. That was fabulous. Great work, Jay and everybody. What a great panel. Great questions at the end. Very insightful and all over. I'd like to mention a couple of things. First, by the way, Broadsign, as you've noticed, is the sponsor here. Broadsign is a terrific company that engages all digital place-based solutions. So a little ad for that, but they're terrific folks. Thank you. So some great comments here. By the way, I appreciate if you spoke your mind more next time.
Sorry, I try.
Rob
I get a little
great.
bashful when I sit up here.
Rob, terrific. In fact, I like Rob, it says pre-roll is fucked and addressable is not fucked. Very well done. Last year we had our reporter, Ken Oleto, who actually used the same word in describing some Google instance. So you're continuing good trait with the F word, but it's welcome. Speak your mind. We like that. Good to see some old friends of mine on this panel. It's like Eric Fischer worked with me at the NBA, and he's a terrific, bright guy that's found the greatest jobs in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's quite amazing how you've done that. And previous, you were at LifeLock as well.
Yeah, so nobody moved to Scottsdale because there's only 6 places to work there. So
You've
if you
found
go
all
there,
great 6.
then you're keeping me out of the other 4.
Eric actually had a great comment for those that may have missed it. He's the only guy that can say contextual contentually, meaning the content is contextual. It's very well done. I tried that. I've been rehearsing it for 5 minutes now. I
learned from you, Barry.
Thank you, man. It's great to see you, Eric. And Carl Fremont, interesting, and also a good old friend, worked in direct marketing for Wonderman and Y&R for many years, and he's basically used a lot of that experience to inform your digital experience now, becoming a digital leader by really using data and information to better enhance buys. So it's a nice evolution that you've all done there, and a great team. Lest anybody think that there's just a whole bunch of white guys here speaking. Our next 3 situations of case studies are all women leading executives. So in case you were wondering, I wanted to say that, but it's not our issue, it may be some others. You guys have done a great job. Jay, thank you, great questions. Jay and I have been on the circuit lately with our friends Dennis Quinn and others at Active Media. We've done some of this good roadshow, which has been absolutely terrific. So just kind of a last question for you folks. Clearly very smart, very programmatic, very digital place-based. Any kind of interesting creative ideas? We have VukuNet now leading the charge in terms of digital place-based in a programmatic setting. Television is evolving into programmatic. We see that happening, as you discussed, Adapt TV. I think Rubicon will get there. Any other thoughts of how creatively and solution-wise digital place-based fits in? As you said, great screens, unavoidable, on the way. And one last comment, which you made, Carl and some others made, is how important creative is. We're focusing on data so much and automation, which is great, but the creative guys, they're spending 95% of their time creating banners and 30-second commercials. We've got all this great data to target, to understand whether you're targeting geographically, psychographically, location, et cetera, and we're serving all the same units. So given that our medium, digital place-based, are big, omnipresent screens right in your daily life, in your face, how do you kind of see programmatic? Just some kind of wild thoughts on how it all fits in and when it gets there.
Well, I would just spend a lot of time understanding a little bit of the history of what's happened with display and mobile and some of the other things that have already kind of advanced in programmatic. We talked a little bit about it today, but I think there are lessons learned, and there are things we've done well and things we have done less well, and you guys get really the benefit of that, and to really know and learn what that is and leverage it as you go forward. But it's kind of easy to wade in. Don't think about it too hard, too, is my other word of it.
Yeah, I would say on that, if you're a digital place-based company and you're approaching the agencies, I think make sure you come to the table with a lot of context of how is the audiences that you're going to be able to put my clients in front of interacting with your place-based screen in whatever shape or form. Don't just come in and give me the size. Tell me how many millions of eyeballs see it, because I want to be able to then bring in the creative team to make sure I'm able to deliver very relevant content that fits in the context of what the consumer is doing at that time.
Yeah,
we need insights
Yes.
at the end of the day. And you have, in digital place-based, such opportunity because you're right there in front of them that we don't necessarily have. So give us the access to the insights about how consumers are shopping.
Excellent.
Play nice in the privacy world.
Yeah, I think we're doing that for sure. And the shopping world, as you can see, ad space is prolific in that space. And on the insights, good point, as our next case studies, we'll show 3 groups of insights and case studies of how this is being used. Thank you very much. Let's give a hand to a terrific panel.